All right, folks. It's like ready or not. Okay. I just have to talk over everybody. Do you? All right. I think we're ready to begin the afternoon meeting. It's like ready or not, we're moving ahead. And so those of you who are seated already, you're the really committed ones, huh? We're glad for the committed audience. You know, the one thing that, or one of the things that a speaker likes, any thoughts of what a speaker really enjoys having? An audience. That's what a speaker enjoys, is that folks who are willing to come and to listen, and not only that they're not asleep, but they have a listening ear and an open heart. And so that's what the Lord wants to give us. I mean, we've been through a lot of meetings and inspiration and blessing. So here we are now, and we probably all could have used digestive walk, but we'll just breathe deeply and let the Lord speak to us. So where possible, let's kneel and we'll seek the Lord. Father, we're just so thankful for your presence with us, for all that you've been doing for us, for the blessings that you've poured out over this weekend, starting Thursday and each day, the music blessings, the information, the instruction, the inspiration through your word. We just praise you for how you're always there for us to revive and renew us. So do that for us this afternoon, Father. Inspire us with the thoughts and the mission work that James is going to speak about, and the history again that Larry's going to share. We just ask for your renewal and your reviving. It's got to come from you, Lord. And we thank you for what you'll do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Patty. All right, good afternoon, everyone. So 9 months ago, I started working with an organization called OCI. Is everyone familiar with OCI? Raise your hand if you are. Raise your hand if you're not. Okay, just a couple. Okay, so Outpost Centers International was started here at Wildwood in 1983, and so it's about close to 40 years in its ministry, and it's an umbrella organization, a network of supporting ministries from around the world. Wildwood's leadership saw the importance of staying connected and supporting the establishment and the building up of new ministries. So right now, our new vision for OCI, which was refined just last year, is to establish a thriving network of lay ministries in every country of the world. And so OCI started already with a global kind of perspective, but after the first 20 years or so, there was about 50 or 60 ministries. Now there are 230 ministries that are part of OCI, a little more to 230, and actually there is a long list of applications. There's about 20 new applications. So OCI is growing at a strong rate now because we are establishing a leadership team in every division of the world to develop more supporting ministries in those territories. So it's not just kind of based just out of Tennessee, for example. So this is a picture of Warren Wilson. He's a former president of Wildwood, trained by Elder Frazee, and he was the first president and founding person of OCI, and their vision, of course, similar. It's the same as what it is today. We're just more specific now in reaching every country. So, when we're strategizing, we want to see what are we doing in this country, in that country, and we want to reach everyone. So this is just a short graph. I showed this yesterday, a couple of these slides. This is just a little introduction. This is a picture of God's church. So the blue are church members, and the white are church pastors and church employees. If you can see the white, does it show up? Can you see the white? It's just a very thin sliver pointed upwards. Okay. So 0.1% of the Seventh-day Adventist Church are pastors. That's why Ellen White was told ministers, ordained ministers alone are not equal to the task. To finish the gospel work, all church members need to be involved. Of course, so if that's the army of God, well, we all need to be, what kind of army is going to go to battle where that little sliver of commanders are fighting, but the soldiers won't fight? So we want to inspire more church members to be involved in sustainable missions and inspire them through the different projects that are already existing. So we have teams that are deploying all around the world to give workshops, to share reports and education about supporting ministries, and hope to inspire more church members to get involved. So I'm just going to breeze through some projects and then give a little update from Eastern Europe. This is a new project in the Philippines called Siloam. They have a restaurant. They're doing a lot of community work. They have a medical missionary school there. Indonesia, they have a great missionary school. They have been training hundreds of people throughout Indonesia that are working to reach the Muslims in that territory. Another great project in Indonesia is Club Sihat is a health food store chain now, and there are over, I didn't mention this yesterday, there are over 15 Club Sihats throughout Indonesia. It's been a franchised model, just really brief. They started as one, and their evangelistic emphasis was through a health club on the second level of this building. This is located in Jakarta, which is about 10 million people. And so on the first level is Club Sihat grocery store. The second level was a the health club that they met weekly at. And on the third level is a new Seventh-day Adventist church because it grew out of the health club. And that got replicated 4 times, so there are 4 Club Sihats in Jakarta alone, and there are 15 Club Sihats now throughout Indonesia. They franchised the model, and they have a warehouse where they do mass purchasing. So all of these Club Sihats get their health foods from one location at low prices. So it's been a really great model. So that's what's happening in Indonesia. OCI has several ministries in India, and they are still doing well, though with challenges. The orphanages that Bill Dahl helped establish, the work that the Stone family are doing, and so forth. Another, probably one that's a little bit newer, is Restoration Health. And so Joshua Subhash was a student at Wildwood, and he is located, I don't know if I can point, yeah, you can see the little red dot there. There, that's Joshua. It's a little bit hard to do that, but so Joshua is an Indian that studied at Wildwood, and he has led the establishment of a health coaching clinic where we train people through the light curriculum and with some specific health coaching skills. And then we have a clinic in the community where people come to register for a 90-day lifestyle program where a health coach comes to your house, 17 visits, teach you how to cook, teach you how to do better shopping, give you all kinds of health lectures and so forth in your home. It's a personalized health coach for a 90-day period, and it's something like $150 or $200 for the whole program. That's, U.S. prices. This is in India. So that's been really good financial support, though, because these health coaches can now sustain themselves through that work. And the last year that I worked for Light, it was amazing that we stopped having to send any money to India because they were becoming totally self-sustainable. So that's a model. So the two most, for me, the things I'm like really excited about now as far as models that could be replicated would be Club Sihat, Indonesia, and Restoration Health, India. Both of those, I think, could be replicated in many different countries around the world. So these kind of testimonies inspire people and can give some direction and some examples. So we're talking about the Middle East. How can we work in the Middle East? Well, maybe personalized health coaching is an avenue. So that's something that we're looking into with that. Another OCI ministry, relatively new, is the Pearl Lifestyle Center in Kazakhstan. They're doing a great work. It's the only ministry of this kind in all of Central Asia, or the union is called the Southern Union Mission. Very few Seventh-day Adventists in this territory. Many of the countries are Muslim-run, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and so forth. challenging territory. So this lifestyle center is ministering to mainly Muslims and any others, from around the country. They are about 2 hours outside of Almaty. So keep them in prayer. There have been some tension in that area this past year, and now with the war going on, there's a little bit of, this is a former Soviet Union, so they need some prayers, and it's a young project. They're needing to develop and grow. They're trying to build a school, so keep the Pearl in your prayer. Another great, more historical project of OCI is Riverside, which many of you even helped to build up and support, so there's been a strong connection with Wildwood in the past with Riverside. And then another great project in Bolivia. I'm just kind of scattering a little bit around the world. Bolivia has got a great project. The Kim family. I saw Benjamin here. It's great to see Benjamin. Was a worker for Light for many years. And so his parents and his brothers are there right now leading out in this project. Mission school, lifestyle, media, doing great work in that territory. Serra do Cipó is a lifestyle center, beautiful lifestyle center in the hills of Brazil, in central Brazil, in the state of Minas Gerais. And this project, I didn't put too many pictures because this is just a brief overview. I shared that more yesterday. But this project has 30 students. They have a new mission school. They have got a great lifestyle program. It is a beautiful part of the country. It's about an hour and a half outside of a major city. And so keep them in prayer. They're doing a great job, and the place is really looking great. We were just there last year. It's fantastic. There are more pictures I could show from Brazil. The work is really growing there and elsewhere in South America. Other OCI ministries we might know, Uchi Pines and Eden Valley, of course. Maybe some that are not so well known. An orphanage in Tanzania, a little new lifestyle center in Chile. Country Life in Czech Republic is one of the older ones. There's look at the lifestyle center in Germany there. That's northern Germany. That's called Landhaus Diarche, I guess is how you say it. Vida International is a ministry in Honduras. They have a thriving elementary school with lots of community children that go there. It's a great evangelistic outpost. There were no Seventh-day Adventists living in that area, but this outpost center ministry has completely changed that. There is now thriving church, and the work is growing there. They have a mission school. They have a great farm. They have a lifestyle center, small, like 2 rooms, I think it is. So just continuing here. Magdaleea Lifestyle Center in Israel. I don't know how many of you have seen this facility, but it's a beautiful place right on the Sea of Galilee. Wouldn't you like to be there? Looks great, doesn't it? So OCI and with Hergalea and Nick Dan and his sister have helped to build up this little new lifestyle center, reaching Jewish people. They've had Orthodox Jews coming there with the hat and the curly wig that they wear, really Orthodox people. But they serve anyone, but they've been, there as a light post in Israel. But now the challenge is, what about in MENA, the Middle East North Africa Union? So we don't have any projects in this union at all. It's a huge challenge in front of us, something that we are in prayer and moving forward on. Norway, Fredheim is a great lifestyle center. Then a little family health food store there in Sweden. There's Hive Camp, which is inspiring young entrepreneurs to be mission focused. There is another little project in Chile. And the one on the bottom right, that didn't get translated, I guess. So that's in Russian, and I definitely wouldn't be able to say that unless I had already looked online. I looked on Google. That's called Farmhouse. That's what came out in my Google Translator. So that ministry is called Farmhouse. I think it kind of means country home, something like that. And so this is in a country that's right north of Georgia. Not Georgia, Georgia, former Soviet Union Georgia. So this is a Russian-speaking territory, nice little lifestyle center there. Also, some of our Wildwood graduates went back to Switzerland and started a home lifestyle center. That's the sister of Jesse Zwicker. And her husband, they went and established that little place that they are doing very well, beautiful place. Farm Stew is a new member of OCI. BioSalute is a health food ministry in Italy. And so what is OCI doing? Well, we have over 230 of these ministries, and we are providing spiritual kind of retreats and mentorship. There's media services, we have training, we have conventions and retreats where we bring leaders in and have some of the best experienced people in these different areas speaking. And by the way, this is happening now regionally. There used to be just like one more international retreat, but people can't fly all over the world in most cases. So each division now is having their own OCI mission convention where they can go get inspired and get some training and inspire other church members. We're making these really open, so we're inviting all church members to come and see what's going on. Because look, most Seventh-day Adventists don't even know that this work is going on. They don't even know that there are places like this. So there's a lot of awareness and education that is needed. OCI also, helps process donations and has a strong network of the ministries. We provide some help, assistance, doing, strategy, strategic planning, and consulting in different areas. So I just wanted to point out some of our organization now. So this is a world map of the General Conference. Each color a different division. And so we just last summer in August voted as a OCI board to align ourselves with the church divisions. So we have a leader now appointed for every division. And here are a picture of those leaders. So some familiar faces, Lane Bautista and his wife Irene. Irene was on the panel this morning for the Southern Asia Pacific Division. Alexi for the Euro-Asia. Barindra is manager of one of Bill Dahl's projects there in India. He's our new field vice president for the Southern Asia Division. Then we have a new member, Boaz Papendick. He went to Weimar. He's been a friend of mine from years ago and has served as the health ministries director in the MENA, the Middle East, North Africa. And now he's living in Senegal, developing a work there. And he's our field VP for West Central Africa. Then you have Dr. Do-Sung Kim in South America. Frank Fournier, based out of Eden Valley for North America. Jeremy Zwicker, Jesse's brother, is in the Trans-European Division. Kim Busel is in the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division, and I think we're finding someone now that we'll hopefully vote on soon for the East Central Africa. Then we have Dr. Nick Dan, who spent time at Wildwood in the 90s. He's built up Hergaleia and helps establish several other ministries. He is over the Israel field and the Inter-European Division. And so notice each territory has a leader. Rodney Bowes, our light president now as of January. He is also with OCI as the Northern Asia Pacific Division field vice president. Then Sergey Kostas, he was trained originally, trying to remember if it was Hergaleia. Yeah, he's a Hergaleia graduate from over maybe 15 years ago. He's worked with Light for many years, and now he's living in Bulgaria, and he has started a ministry that helps enter the Middle East, North Africa territory. OCI has tapped him for our field vice president for that territory. And then we have Shaniel Fisher, and he is over the Inter-America Division. So those are the leadership of OCI, and each of these leaders is working with a team under them or developing a team. So there are regional directors underneath. So each territory has maybe a regional director and assistant and communications director. So we have our own retreats in each of these areas, and so the ministries can have someone a little bit closer by than Tennessee to relate to. It's very, very important because I think a lot of the ministries maybe we're getting a little out of touch with OCI because OCI is just an office in Tennessee. But now there are leaders living in the division and regional directors close by that are visiting these projects, that are assisting and helping these projects on a local level, in the language, in the countries, with retreats that are there. So this is a plan to give OCI some more growth and expansion. So we're excited about that. Lastly, I wanted to just share a little bit of what's happening in regards to our ministries in Eastern Europe, especially Ukraine. So we have several OCI projects that have been affected by this devastating war. And I'm sure all of our hearts go out to those suffering, especially in Eastern Ukraine and other places, Northern Ukraine. People's lives have been lost by the tens of thousands. We don't even know how many displaced. So this is a lifestyle center that was functioning, Zwevka, a great place there in eastern Ukraine. They have been evacuated. The whole territory is taken over now by Russia. That's an occupied territory. This is the team. They were running lifestyle programs, training people. The leaders are a husband and wife couple all the way on the left. The wife is studying medicine right now, or she was, but their lives have been affected greatly. And so they have, everyone else has left, but the husband and wife are staying in the house. And the husband is afraid to even leave the house because the Russian military is grabbing men that are on the streets and making them join the army by force. And so it's just a terrible thing. So we need to be lifting up ministries like this in prayer. There's another one called Adar Lifestyle Center, also a newer project. Look way on the east. That was just not a good place to be. And so everyone has evacuated from that lifestyle center. Russians have occupied that territory as well, unfortunately. Then we had a third project called the Addiction and Trauma Therapy Center. And these guys were doing wonderful work helping people recover from drug addictions and various different kind of addictions. Here's a picture of some of those that have been helped through this program. They were doing such a great job, but they've had to suspend their services. Their territory is not occupied right now, but they cannot function right now. It's very tense in the region that they are at. And so it's closed temporarily. The fourth OCI ministry in Ukraine is Our Home, and that's the largest, oldest, strongest ministry in this country that with Charles Cleveland helped build this place up way back in the 90s, and they've just flourished. It's a great ministry. They've got a beautiful property. I can show some pictures of it. This is a good overview of the property. That's the lifestyle center with a green roof. They have several staff homes, an education building, auditorium, a big farm project there. And so they have housed well over 700 refugees that are fleeing from the east. And as we speak, I think there are over 400 currently on their property. Some are passing through, trying to get out of the country. Some are staying there. They've got no place to go. A lot of them are former lifestyle guests. They're like, well, where am I going to go? Our Home, so they're just fleeing to Our Home. Former students, former lifestyle guests, people that know about them are fleeing there. This is a picture of what the future could look like for many of our outpost ministries, maybe Wildwood itself. And for Z have this idea, another ark to build, a place of refuge, a place for people to flee in the time of trouble. And so look what's happening. There's trouble in Ukraine, and this outpost has been a refuge for hundreds and hundreds of refugees. And so, but they don't have the ability to just take on 400 extra mouths to feed. They barely make it. It's been very challenging since the initial attack Russia made on this country. Was it 2012 or 14? I can't remember, where Crimea was invaded. And so times have been difficult since that time, because they used to get a lot of Russian lifestyle guests. They don't get those. They haven't gotten those, and students. So the ministry was greatly impacted. And now this. And so we really need to extend our help to lift up their hands, because they're trying to make a difference. And a lot of these people fleeing to Our Home, they're not Seventh-day Adventists. And so it's a great opportunity in time of stress and distress that this is a great chance to share Christ. And, it's a great soul-winning opportunity pointing people to Jesus. There are also several projects in bordering countries to Ukraine, primarily Hergaleia, Romania. We know many refugees are crossing over into Romania. Hergaleia is housing several refugees. In fact, some of our ministry leaders and workers from the Ukraine are at Hergaleia right now. But most of the staff is still there at Our Home in Ukraine, but some have been able to get out. So Hergalea is offering support. Dr. Dan has really been helpful to organize a lot of the support. And I don't know, most of us here maybe not have seen of this project. This is a relatively, like the last 10 years ministry in Moldova, the Center for Health and Prevention. I was actually at this property some 12 or 13 years ago, and it didn't look like this at all. There was just a little school and a little house, and there was this old run-down building. They have completely remodeled this place and made it into a beautiful lifestyle center. It is a thriving ministry. And Moldova is one of the places taking on some of the most refugees, because I think they have like 8 entry points into Moldova. What do you call them? Border place, sorry. Brain loss there. So Moldova is supporting quite a bit, and so those are some of the places that we're networking with to try to lend support. Also our project down in Bulgaria, where BISER, at the Center for Health and Prevention, they are also taking on refugees. So Adventist Help is another OCI ministry that does crisis medical support, and so they are establishing a medical tent. I believe now, I know they were kind of debating between Moldova and Poland. I think they chose Poland, which also is getting a lot of refugees, and are bringing in physicians and medical support to help with some of the needs there. So please, that's just an overview of some of the work that's been affected. So please be praying for these ministries. This crisis is far from, well, we hope it's over soon. We can pray that the war will end soon, but people's lives are still being greatly affected, and it doesn't seem like it's ending anytime soon. So please be praying for them. If you want to support the work, you could go to outpostcenters.org. We are organizing, raising funds, and getting them sent over to these places. Thankfully, we've been able to send money to our homes still. The banks are still working in that area, so we can get them a little cash to feed 400 miles, every day. So it's just a lot, but it's a great opportunity. It's a crisis, and it's a chance to share the love of God for those that are in a really hard time of their life. So thank you. That's the report I wanted to share. So Larry is going to now come up and share about some of the history of Wildwood. I'm really interested to hear some of the research that he's looked into. So thank you, Larry. You got your own microphone, I guess.
You have to listen to that. We need to remind ourselves again. I'm sure a lot of you know this reference, right? High above the distractions of the earth, God sits enthroned, right? He's still. And everything is open to his divine survey, right? And from his great and calm eternity, he orders that which his providence sees best. I would encourage you all to memorize that if you haven't, because it can bring you peace, right? When we're in times like we're talking about today, even though it's not right here, where we are, it's all over, with the whole world is small today, right? We know what's going on everywhere. So we're going to talk about 80 years and how it all began. Now, even though this was titled The History of Wildwood, it's not really the history of Wildwood. Someone heard that in our executive committee. We were talking about planning for this, the history of Wildwood. No, how boring. We've got this long, because we've been reading through some of the history in the meeting there. All these details from previous meetings and this kind of thing. And I thought, well, that's boring. So we're not going to talk about the history of Wildwood, meaning all the little details. We're going to talk about how it began. What was it that led up to it? How did it come about? And so we can see the providence of God and how he worked things and how he's still going to continue to work things. How many were here to hear what Kyle Allen had to say? Okay, not a lot, but a lot of what he said is what I'm saying. Interesting how we got overlapped. And he started the same place that I'm starting. So if you're going to think about, okay, how did Wildwood start? Where do you begin? Well, we're going to begin. Well, I thought we were going to begin. Lost the slide program. Sorry? There we go. Okay. We're going to begin on June 6th, 1863. And the reason we're beginning there is because that was a Sabbath day, if you look up that. Ellen White was given her first major vision on health. And this was only 16 days after the General Conference was officially organized. Interesting how God puts things together, right? So, but how many years is this after 1844? 19 years, right? Here we are 19 years later. And now we're just now getting organized after 19 years. Okay, we were scattered like the little flock. Remember the words to the little flock. And so 19 years later, finally coming together, 16 days later, God says, okay, here's what you need first. You need health. Give the first health vision. Well, what was going on in 1863? This is the middle of the Civil War. What is that? Why is God doing this? He's starting his church in the middle of the Civil War. Where's everybody's focus? If you picked up any newspaper, any flyer, you go down to the local town and the pubs and everybody's talking. What are they talking about? They're talking about the war. That's the only thing that's on everybody's mind. And yet here God starts, I'm going to give you a health message here. You know? So, well, this was God's Emancipation Proclamation of freedom from the slavery of self-serving habits. And January 1st of 1863 was the proclamation from President Lincoln of freedom from the slavery of men. Now, that's not exactly what it's made out to be. That's not as magnanimous as it may seem. That was actually a political movement, or move, and a military strategy to win the war. Because he figures, well, if he tells the slaves that they're free, then they'll come out and join the North and they will fight against the South and we'll win the war. That was the reason he did that. And not only that, it was only the states that were rebellious were they free. The middle states in between were not. Any of the territories, you're still a slave. And not only that, the whole thing was unconstitutional because the president doesn't have a right to make law. Only the Congress can do that. So anyway, it was a big sham. It was a way to win the war. It's really what it was all about. So it wasn't in reality. So in the states' minds, there was no such thing, right? It's not that way with God. When God makes a proclamation, it's true and it's right. When man says things, it may or may not be, right? So, but interesting thing here, do I have to do it twice every time? I guess so. June 2 of 1863, this is 4 days earlier than Ellen White's vision. Just 4 days earlier, Harriet Tubman led a group of escaped slaves through the woods from Virginia to Maryland to freedom. Now, remember the proclamation came January 1. It took this long for Harriet Tubman to get everything together. They had to send some soldiers down there, some of the Union soldiers into Virginia. And Harriet Tubman showed how to go through the woods and over the creeks and all the way to get through in secret so they could get these slaves into Maryland. This is the first time she started that. So it's interesting. Now, this is what's on people's mind when this health message came. Okay? So, where's your focus going to be? I mean, what about us today? What are we focusing on? You know, are we focusing on the health message that God gave us? Or are we focusing on the war? This is the same thing that we're in right there. Okay? So, 1 month later, after this vision, the Battle of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania took place. Everybody's talking about that. That was the worst battle in the whole war. And 1 month after Ellen White got the health message. Okay? Now, skip a couple of years down the road. December 25, 1865, 2.5 years later, Ellen White was given its second major vision on health. And this was 19 days after slavery was finally abolished in the U.S. with the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. So this is basically took 3 years from the Emancipation Proclamation to the time that slavery actually did get abolished. It was just by word only before. 3 years later, it finally took place. But now God is still working with us. He's saying, all right, here's a second vision on health. You need to be focusing on this. Get your mind off the war. The war is over now. Okay? Let's get to thinking about something else. And so then another 7 years down the road, in January of 1872, Ellen White received her first major vision on education. And you can find this vision, or what she wrote out of that vision, in 3 Testimonies 131 to 160, and it's entitled Proper Education. Okay, she had that first vision. So now why are we putting together health and education? What's Wildwood noted for? Health and education, right? So we had two major visions on health, and then a major vision on education, trying to get it all together. But you know what else happened in January of 1872? What's going on now? In this same month, the U.S. Patent Office issued its first ever list of all U.S. patents, one of them being a patent for the first electric elevator. So the war's over, 7 years later, things are going, things are bustling, industry's going, people are coming up with all kinds of new machines and new patents, and that's where everybody's focus is now, trying to make money, recover from the war. Okay? But God wants us to be interested in what? Education. He says, I want you to focus on education. Don't focus on what the world is doing out there. And then here she puts these things together. I have been instructed that there are decided advantages to be gained by the establishment of a school and a sanitarium in close proximity, that they may be a help one to the other. So even though she talks about specifically a school and a sanitarium, we had both of them in the same place. And so we're told that that is what God wants us to do, right? So this is God's way of preparing for what he wants to do. So finally, in May of 1904, we'll switch down to 1904 now. Edward Sutherland, who was the president at the time, and Percy McGann was the academic dean, they resigned from Emmanuel Missionary College and moved to Tennessee to establish Madison College. Okay, now why did they do that? This is in their own words. They did this because they shared the dream of a school where the science of true education might be brought to full fruition, unhampered by criticism. A school where God's plan could be carried out in every particular. See, they had been there in Michigan, and they got out of the city and started doing some gardening and stuff like that in part of the school. But the conference leaders, the teachers, the pastors, the parents, they just weren't happy with the whole situation. It wasn't following what other schools were doing. So they decided, well, we are leaving. 1904, they finally said, we're leaving. We're going to go down south. Ellen White counseled them, so we're going to move down there, and then we can do what we're supposed to do apart from everybody's criticism. But even that meeting, the meeting where these two guys resigned, that was a stormy meeting. It's not just because of losing the two leaders, they're leaving there, but it was also dominated by acrimonious discussions over Dr. Kellogg's pantheistic leanings. Okay, that was a big discussion of the day in 1904. Dr. Kellogg is bringing in his book, The Living Temple, bringing in the pantheistic ideas, and that was a big part of the discussion where these two men finally resigned from the board and decided to leave. But that wasn't the only thing going on. Ellen White was there, and she attended those meetings, and she was speaking several times to the students and to the faculty, and she also spoke at the graveside service of Ida McGann, Percy McGann's wife, who died at the age of 33. So here you are in this big thing in your life. You're Percy McGann. You're resigning from this school. The people are down on you. You can't do education the way you're supposed to do it. You need to leave and go to Tennessee, and your wife dies. We were talking about sacrifice, right? And it's just one thing after another. Well, you know what else happened in 1904? In May 4 of 1904, the United States took on the job of digging the Panama Canal. Okay, industries moving, everything, people are spending big bucks. They're trying to get, a way through so that they don't have to go all the way around South America. They can go halfway through in the middle there, right? So this is happening, but God says don't focus on that. I want you to focus on health and education. Here's a picture of Percy McGann and Edward Sutherland in the early days when they were getting ready to go to Madison. And now Madison College, it was owned by a nonprofit corporation that Ellen White herself helped to form. And this was the only board that she ever served on. She was there to help them and help them find the property. I'm sure many of you have read that story. And here's a picture of Ellen White there in front of the Madison Sanitarium or college at that time, April of 1909. She's sitting there in the middle. Now, you know what else happened in April of 1909? The first speed limit for automobiles in the U.S. took effect in New York City. It was 12 miles per hour. But in 1910, right around the corner there, Thomas Edison drove an electric car for 1,000 miles on a single charge. They can't even do that today. Of course, he probably didn't go over 20 miles an hour, but anyway, he went 1,000 miles on one charge. Now, there's a picture of Madison, just so you can see. I think that is the old building there. You notice they're trying to build a new one right there, and this is the newer buildings after the oldest one, the beginning there, just so you can see what that finally got into. And then this is the map. What was Madison supposed to do? It was supposed to start new schools. So here's a map, all the little parts of the South here, of all the different places they went to. And some of those, if you can read there, it says some of them are just educational, some are just health, and some are health and education together, different places around the South here, starting all these little schools. Now, let's move forward again, 1922-23. This was the last school year that the College of Medical Evangelists took in medical missionary students before it became the only Class A medical school in Southern California. Okay? They had the name College of Medical Evangelists until 1962, I think it was, when they finally became Loma Linda. But this was the last, where they had the year-long course of medical missionary evangelists. And that was also the year that 16-year-old W.D. Frazee entered the school as a student, and Percy T. McGann was the president. He had left Madison and going to CME. Now, again, if you try to establish things in history, I've done a lot of research on history and science and various things. You can't hardly establish anything. Everybody's got, all the historians have their own opinions. And even that first vision, where we said it was on the Sabbath, Bill and White's vision, some people say, well, I was there and it was actually Friday night before. Well, anyway, this one, some people say Elder Frazee was 16, some say 17. So as Don and I were talking, I think we figured out that, okay, the school year starts in the fall. He was 16 and turned 17 to his February of 23. So everybody's right, but anyway. But he probably went there when he was 16, turned 17 in February, and he was there at the school. And then, you know what else happened in 1923? Insulin was first used as a treatment for diabetes. The movie The Ten Commandments came out, the first one, not the second one, with Charlton Heston, the first one. Then the first Major League Baseball game was played at Yankee Stadium in New York. So that's where's everybody's mind in the 1920s? The roaring 20s, right? Everybody's mind is just partying and games and having fun and making movies and this and the other and all these new inventions and everything going on and cars running around. Where does God want us to focus? Health and education. Right? So while Bill Frazee was there at CME, he met, of course, those who heard Kyle's talk, he met John H.N. Tindall there, who had returned to the school for a refresher course, in dietetics to do what? To be better prepared for his evangelistic work. We saw he had a big discussion on that, how John Tindall had to come back and learn this dietetics in order to help him with his evangelism. So that's where he met him. And then here's a picture of John Tindall. They're the one sitting in the middle. This was. I am told that this was a picture when he was in Oklahoma. This was the most successful evangelistic program in the church up until that time in 1923. So, or 20-some, whatever year it was. It was a little later. They're in Oklahoma. So young Frazee learned from Elder Tindall how to put to practice the medical missionary training that he got at CME while working with him for about 5 years. So he got this opportunity now. This is the way to learn, right? Find somebody who's doing the work you want to do it and go with them and do it. 5 years he had the opportunity to work with Elder Tindall in San Francisco area and learn how to put in practice what he had learned in the theory. You know, Ellen White tells us that. If you want to learn how to cook, what do? Find somebody who's cooking, somebody who really knows how to do it, and become their apprentice. That's the best way to learn. Okay? So later on, Elder Frazee, he led a group of dedicated medical missionaries who would travel from place to place. They'd stay, a long time at a place. And they would be raising up churches, and from the medical contacts they made, they was mostly medical people. They were all medical evangelists, and they would have meetings and meet with people and heal the people, and then move on to the next place. Maybe might stay 2 years or someplace. And Elder Frazee was in contact with Willie White, and Willie White told him, now this is just the kind of work that his mother wanted to see happen. This idea of evangelistic teams, she calls them little companies, right? You've probably read that. These companies going around from place to place, raising up churches, and then leaving the place there. Paul did that, right? Medical missionary work, same thing. So this is exactly the kind of work we should be doing. So Elder Frazee did that for some years, went around like that. Finally decided he needed to do something different. I need to have a school where I can train other people to do this. It's not good to have just one company. We need to have hundreds of companies. Where can I have a school? So he's looking around for a place. He contacts Willie White, and Willie says, here's what you need to do. You need to get in contact with the self-supporting work folks. They can tell you how to start things, how to help you to find a piece of property and everything like that. So Elder Frazee went to Madison. And there he met two people that were very instrumental, Neil Martin and George McClure. And Brother Martin had a property in Alabama called El Reposo, and he said, he said, well, maybe this is the property we should have the school at. Well, they went there and looked at it and tried it, and it just never worked. For whatever reason, I didn't dig out all the details to why it didn't work. And so Neil Martin says, we need to start looking for a property. We need to find something. Where does God want us to land? And there's a picture of George McClure as well. You can see him back there. Well, unbeknownst to the people at Madison earlier, in the beginning parts anyway, there was a medical missionary doctor, O.M. Hayward, and he was working in Chattanooga. Here's a picture of Dr. Hayward, and he was a pioneer medical missionary in the South, and he formed a corporation called the Institute of Health and Healing on February 27, 1936. This is before Elder Frazee started looking for property. And the interesting thing, the Russian physiologist Ivan Pavlov died on that same day, at the age of 86. Just as God is starting this new institution. Anyway, so Dr. Hayward owned a 500-acre farm just south of Chattanooga, and he sold it to the Institute of Health and Healing for $1. I've got the deed on that in my office. So Health and Healing then owned the property. Well, oh yeah, $1 worth a lot more back then. But anyway, okay, the Institute of Health and Healing still owns most of the property that Wildwood Health Institute uses. Okay, in case some of you didn't know that. Well, this is one of Elder Frazie's famous favorite statements, that everybody has a special calling, right? It says, "Not more surely is a place prepared for us in the heavenly mansions than is the special place designated on earth where we are to work for God." Do you believe that? So you need to find out, where is that special place, God? Show it. Show it to me. Don't just start picking your own place. Don't say, "Oh, I don't want to go to Minnesota. It's too cold. I don't want to go to Africa. Too many mosquitoes." You know, you're putting the Holy Spirit in a box, right? Don't do that. Say, "Lord, show me where is my special place." That's where you want to go. So Neil Martin was looking around for that special place. That's what he's doing. He's got his old car. He's driving around, trying to find something. He's driving through Chattanooga. The head gasket blows out right in front of Dr. Haywood's office. I wonder who did that. Do you think an angel did that? But anyway, they had heard of Dr. Hayward before this particular time, but there he was right nearby. And so he goes to get some help from Dr. Hayward. Dr. Hayward says, "You know what? Your search is over. I've got the property you're looking for." So, long story short, December 25, 1941 is when Elder Frazee and his wife and adopted daughter stepped foot on the property. December 41, does that ring a bell? Only 18 days before that, the Japanese Air Force attacked Pearl Harbor and brought the U.S. into World War II. So here we're talking about another war going on. The whole United States now just entered into a war, and Elder Frazee steps into Wildwood 18 days later. God says, "Don't worry about that war. Don't think about that war. I'm watching that war. You know, I'm sitting on my throne taking care of that war. You don't have to worry about that war. You do what you're supposed to do here in Georgia." Right? That's what he's saying. So here's Wildwood Lifestyle Center and Hospital, Georgia. It's this old sign. Look, if you can see it, there's snowing in that picture at night. Now, here's a map. I don't know if I can point things out to you. You probably can't. This is an older aerial map of Wildwood in the beginning. What do you notice that isn't there? There's no lake. Where's Lake Edna? No lake, no dam, no chapel. See, I don't know if I can get the... See, that's where the chapel should be. There's no chapel. Right there, no store right here. Okay, you got Mission Manor. You're right there. You got this building right there. That's called Evangelid. You can see Haskell Hall's up there and Mission Manor. So it's a little bit, or not Mission Manor, but Sunnyside. So it's a little bit later. When they first got here, the only major building was Evangelid. It was a three-story building when I got here. It was a three-story building that burned down. I sat there and watched the thing burn, eating breakfast out my window. We're sitting here in the dark. Patty and I had just been married. We're living outside the front gate in a trailer. And we're eating breakfast, and we look out the window. What? Looks like a glowing house out there. What is that? Look up, and all three stories of Evangelid is completely on fire. The whole thing's burning down. And interesting thing was there's a lot of students and various people live there. Nobody lost their lives. Everybody lost all their stuff. And you know, one girl came to us later talking to us about it, and she said, "You know, I had loaned out a lot of my things to different people. And you know, the only thing I have now is what I loaned out. They brought it back to me, and it's the only thing I have." So this was the early days. So what they did, Evangelid. So actually, you know, there's been 3 sanitariums here. According to Elder Frazee, the first one was Evangelid. That was the first sanitarium. That was their sanitarium. It was their business office. It was their kitchen. It was where they had classes. It was where some of them slept. They had a few little outbuildings. The cabin way over on the Tennessee side was here at the beginning. Nothing else. They had to build all these other things. And you know how they got people to come? He said, well, Elder Frazee said he would just go around, he'd talk to people, tell them he's got this property, he's starting this school. You want to come and work in the vineyard? I can't promise you anything other than the fact that the Lord will take care of you. That's what he told them. And of course, people came. They were willing to do that. Okay, so here's a more modern view. You can see now the lake is in there. And you can see the shop and the old printing press, that long building down there now where maintenance is. Used to be a printing press in there. And you can see Haskell Hall, and the freeway now has been put in. Okay. And there's another view there. Now you got the chapel and the sanitarium building, both, the new sanitarium building and that figure. Okay. Now here's an interesting little piece of paper. It's the circled part there says, that's what's written there on the side. It was at the legal meeting of the corporation in Alabama that Dr. Sutherland said that he believed the pillar of cloud and pillar of fire of self-supporting work rests at Wildwood. And this was within the first year of arriving at Wildwood. So he felt like, even though when they started Madison College, God was with them, they sort of wandered off doing exactly what God wanted them to do. And so now the pillar of cloud moves here to Wildwood. And you probably can't read it there. Well, I've got it a little bit bigger. I don't know if you can read it or not. The list there is a list of all the people who showed up the first day along with them. There was 15 names there. Probably can't read them, but that first list there is the 15 people who showed up. So here in this place, you got one big building, one building over on the Tennessee side, and 15 people. What do you do? Well, it said some of us went out and started chopping down. What was it? It was December. Some people started chopping down wood so it could have fire, so they could be warm, so they wouldn't have to buy coal. They didn't have any money to buy coal. So we go get wood. Other people could go do this, that, and the other. Some people could milk the cows because there were cows here at the time. Okay? Some people could do this, that, and the other. They got rid of the pigs before they moved in. That was part of the stipulation. And other people who had nursing abilities, they could go up on the top and of Lookout Mountain and find people to help. They would get paid. They would bring their whole salary and throw it in the pot. And these 15 people would live out of that money. Okay? And eventually, when they first started getting a stipend, everybody got $5 a month. Okay? It was worth more back then. But anyway. That second group of names there is the groups that came right after. About another 10 people came, a couple, within a year, new people came. And another interesting thing, I just want to read this. You probably can't read it. But one time, somebody asked about Neil Martin's wife. Whatever happened to her? And you know what his answer was? He said, well, when I was a young man, I was doing the hydrotherapy on a man, and an older guy, and he had a scar on his chest. And I said, where'd you get that scar? And he said, son, I got that asking questions that I should have kept my mouth shut. So we don't know what happened to his wife. We didn't get the story. So now let's go forward. Okay, we had Evangelid. That was the first sanitarium. Now we need to have a new sanitarium. We want to make it a hospital, God's Miracle Hospital, from the spring of 1942 to the fall of 1947. How long is that? 5.5 years. It took 5.5 years to build that building. 5.5 years. Working on one building. Well, what was going on in spring of 1942? April 18, 1942, the U.S. Air Force began bombing Tokyo. Same month, while the Mission Manor started being built. Okay? Don't worry about the war. I'll take care of the war, God says. You build your building. 1947, when it was finished, Israel was made a nation. India and Pakistan gained their independence from the United Kingdom, and Bell Labs invented the transistor. So that's what's going on around. And here's the picture of God's Miracle Hospital Part 1. There it is when it's finished. 3-story building. And But they had to try to make it a hospital. And of course, when you have a hospital, you have to have an inspector, right? The inspector comes out, and he wants to make sure everything's just the way it is. And one of the things you have to have as a hospital is an x-ray machine. So one day, Herb Atherton was here. He came in 1963, and he was here at that time. He was a hospital administrator before he came in a nice, big, fancy hospital. He came in, he was shown Mission Manor, and he said, "This is a hospital?" Anyway, he stayed. And they said, "Well, I think we've got an x-ray machine in the basement." So they go down to the basement, which is below the bottom level there. You can't see it in the pictures. But below that, they go down in the basement. There's an old Picker x-ray machine. I used to teach people how to repair these things. And they were made for the U.S. Army. And it was a mobile unit. You could wheel it around in the back of a Jeep. You know, they had that down in the basement. They weren't sure it worked. And the inspector said, "Well, you're going to have to do better than that, Mr. Atherton." And Herb says, "Okay, I promise you, you give us our license this year, and next year we'll have a good x-ray machine." So he starts praying about it and found out the old hospital that he used to work at got a new x-ray machine. And so he said, "Well, what are you going to do with your old one?" "Well, we're just going to get rid of it." And he said, "Well, okay, I'll give you $1,000 for it." So Herb took his own $1,000, because the Institute didn't have $1,000. He took his own $1,000, bought that x-ray machine, and moved it here in Mission Manor so they could have an x-ray machine and still be a legal hospital. So there's some of the nurses that work there in the building. And then part two decided, that building went on for a while, but now from June 11, 1967 to September 7, 1971 was the time it took to build the new sanitarium. Another 4 years, right? Well, on June 11, 1967, a riot started in Tampa, Florida, and the National Guard was called out. And in May of '67, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band forever changed Western society. But God says, don't pay any attention to that. Let them do what they want to do, right? Don't get hung up in that. Don't sit around and listen to that. I want you to build this building. On September 3 of 1971, the Watergate group broke into Daniel Ellsberg's doctor's office in the middle of the night trying to get damaging information on him. If you know anything about the Watergate scandal, that was a big thing, happened in September. That's when the sanitarium was dedicated and finished. In September 73, that's what was going on in the world. And God says, don't pay any attention to Watergate. That's politicians just being politicians, and they're going to keep doing that. But don't let that sidetrack you. I want you to bring people into this sanitarium and heal them, right? Teach them. So there it is, the beginning. I think we saw that picture this morning. And starting with the group there. Now, in starting that, well, we talked about Fred Callahan. He was in charge of a lot of the work there, getting it together and all the building. So there's the finished product. But when they started, now Herb Atherton was here then, still. And he says, we're going to build this building. We need over $1 million to finish this building. You know how much they had to start? $10,000. Okay, Herb says, we got $10,000 set aside. Let's go do some footings. So they start digging. That's what this digging was all about. They started digging the ground, setting up the footings, pouring some concrete. They had their $10,000. That's all they had for $1 million building. And so Herb said, well, what am I supposed to do? Or you want me to quit? Does everybody want me to quit, or you want to go on with the story? No, they want me to go on. Donna, is that all right with you? It's all right with her. She's going to do the tours. Now, this is almost over. Anyway, what was it? Oh, yeah, Herb was trying to get the money for this building. And so he knew a man that had lots of money. And you know what the man did? He wouldn't give him any money. He said, I'll send you my fundraiser. So he sent him his fundraiser, and he went down here, and he starts talking to him. And he's trying to show him what to do, how much money they needed to raise. He goes all around Chattanooga and all the different contacts that he had. And he came back in a couple of weeks, and he says, Herb, I got you no money. I'm not going to get you any money. Nobody's going to put money into this thing. This is going to be Herb Atherton's folly. Not going to happen. And so he left. So you know what Herb did? Herb said, well, I spent my $10,000, and then I went out and I prayed, and I started telling people what I was doing. I'd go out and find somebody. What are you doing? I'm building $1 million building. Come out and look at it. I got the footings already here. So he'd come out and look at the footings. Says, you know what we do? We need the first round of blocks. How much is that going to cost? Oh, so much. Oh, hey, I can give you that. So they did that. Next round of blocks. You got some money for that? That's what he did for the whole building. He just kept showing people what he was doing and bringing them out here physically and saying, look what I did. Here's what I need to get. I have $40,000 for this. Oh, okay, I'll get you $40,000. One after another, Herb said. It just kept going on and on until they finished the whole thing in 4 years. And there's Herb Atherton and his wife, who's still with us. So that's actually where I'm going to stop. And if Donna wants to come up and tell you about, if you want to have an actual tour of the Heritage Department and whatever else, she can tell you all about it.
Thanks, Barry.
Yeah.
Greetings. This has been an inspiring weekend. I loved the meetings programs yesterday. That was awesome. And now this evening, we've advertised a tour. Let me make one disclaimer. This tour is not of the campus. And some people, well, there was mention in church this morning we might tour the surgery suite and the lifestyle center. I don't believe there's going to be any tours of the lifestyle center. We're very careful with that building. Ever since COVID came along, we have to check in one by one with temperatures, and we make sure our guests are safe, and we will not be touring the lifestyle center. But I'm the history tour gal. So just an extension of Larry's history of Wildwood. There's options. I'm looking around. I tried to think of how to do, have all kinds of possibilities of what we could do according to how many people we have and how many are interested in a tour. The Heritage Room is a small room. 10 to 15 is about the maximum I can take in there at one time. But there's not a lot that you can see and get a feel for it in 5 to 10 minutes, and we can do relays with people. I have a few folks that have promised to go with me who can tell some stories while we're working through the relays, to the folks that are waiting their turn to go in. One possibility that I dreamed of is to take a nice walk. These bright lights make me not able to see you as well. Probably can't see me as well either, right? So how many of you, just let me get a little poll, how many of you would enjoy, after sitting as much as you have today, a walk from here to Haskell Hall? Okay, raise your hands really high. Let me get a rough count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28.